It was a lightning fast fall sitting down here at Province House, so we're going to do a lightning fast review of how the government was able to get out of here in just 8 days, what was the most controversial legislation that came up, and what is potentially lost by the government using this process.
So one of the reasons they were able to move through the House so quickly is because a lot of the legislative changes were put into omnibus bills. A bunch of different bills and acts dealt with at the same time so that they moved through the House at the same pace. The government likes this for the sake of efficiency. Opposition doesn't like this so much because they don't get to debate each piece of legislation on its own. They get this poison pill if they want to oppose one piece of the legislation but support another.
And we saw that in particular with Bill 127. That is the bill that dominated the debate while MLAs were down here in downtown Halifax. What made it a difficult bill, in particular for the opposition and some members of the public, was the way it combined a bunch of different things that didn't seem to be related. But you also had changes to the Crown Lands Act, which increases the penalties for and expands the rules around people who are protesting forestry operations around logging roads on Crown land. And it does not strike some people anyway as a coincidence that this came at the very time that Mi'kmaq land protectors are set up on Hunter's Mountain in Cape Breton, blockading such a cut.
And we saw a lot of pushback to this bill, with folks coming down to the Public Bills Committee to express their opposition to it. Interestingly, the government did not budge on this. Just in the spring sitting, we saw when there was a lot of public pushback against some of their proposed legislative changes, they walked them back. They made amendments to their own bills. In this sitting, the government didn't make a single amendment to any of their own bills.
The other thing that we see as a function of an increased number of omnibus bills, and this government used 5 during this sitting, is it reduces not just the amount of debate time potentially for the opposition, it reduces the government voices that we hear. Bill 127 affected 7 existing pieces of law, and it created an 8th. And yet we heard from almost none of the cabinet ministers who have fingerprints on that legislation. And that is indeed a loss in the debate process down here.
And so the government moved through the House, passed all of its bills. That doesn't mean that government business is done. It doesn't mean that the challenges before this government are over. We'll be watching to see if anyone decides to challenge Bill 127 in court. There was talk of this in the House, and it could be an individual or a group that decides they want to go to court to mount a judicial review to see if this bill is actually in violation of charter rights or if it follows the Constitution.
To me, the big question is what's going to happen with the provincial budget. We found out last month that the deficit is on track to hit $1.2 billion. And the government can no longer count on major economic boosts that come from population increases because those rates have plateaued here. And so we will wait to see if the government will make changes and adaptations to rein in spending. We saw last week the announcement of a reduced eligibility for the heating assistance rebate program, reduced payments for people who still qualify, and time will tell whether the government is forced to make other changes.